Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Pool Box Pals podcast. I am
Heck
Monk.
yeah.
Oh, heck yeah. I don't know what that was, but that lovely voice was my buddy Mark, aka Mad. How you doing, buddy?
Whatever. I'm doing all right, my friend, my
You're
pal.
looking sharp as the blade that I would assume cut your hair.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I went to a barber for the first time in like 5+ years, and uh, so I've told you this, but just so everybody knows, I usually cut my own hair, or I have been for I don't know, last 7 or so years, and last time I did it, I messed up pretty bad, so it ended up just like completely shaving my head. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't want to have to resort to this every time I mess up, so I'm just gonna start paying for somebody to do it,
That's why
and
they're professionals,
and
right?
that's why they're professionals. And my barber did a great job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I 100% agree. Do you know that I went to cosmetology school for a bit? Did I ever?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
I
okay.
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun fact about myself that I love to whip out that I'm like, I love hair. Oh,
Whoa.
there it was. That was one heck of a pop. If you don't normally watch the video version of the show, I would highly recommend that you do just to see Mark
I
explode a drink
I'm
all over
embarrassed. It's
himself.
never happened before. I
What?
got some on one of my new comics.
Oh no,
It's
buddy.
okay.
It
It's
is
okay.
okay.
It's fine.
It's like it sounds like you like it's like you like accidentally killed your little brother or like whatever. I guess I don't probably not kill, but you accidentally hit him.
Yeah, that's a little extreme.
You accidentally knocked out your little brother.
It's
You're like,
yeah,
no,
I'd say it's more like you accidentally stepped on like a bug you didn't want to
yeah,
squash,
no,
like that.
no,
Yeah, but
oh. My-
yeah, killing your little brother on accident. That's a whole new level, man.
Well, hey man,
Yeah.
I'm drinking a Canadian dry because your boy is a little under the weather, and I feel
Mm.
like Sprite and Canadian dry are the like Caucasian fix to the average cold.
Oh
Is that
yeah,
fair?
that's
So,
pretty fair. Yeah.
but hey man, so just the FYI, if you hear me doing some sniffling and or sneezing or coughing or anything like that, I'm sorry about that. But oh look at that, our buddy Carl swung on through. Howdy, finally made it on
Hey,
time.
Carl.
Carl, good to have you, friend. I hope you were a pal. Good to have you, pal.
Yeah.
Hope you were able to make it to your comic shop. And Mark, were you able to make
Yeah.
it to your comic shop today?
I did, but before I show what I got there, I got another kind of shout out because we got Carl on, but like Carl, this is just the comic community. We talked
Yeah.
about that last week, and there's a couple comics that came out last week that I wasn't able to get at my shop, so I hit up our pals over the comic book lair. Their suggestion of going with another pal and coffee and a comic, and that package came today.
Oh, nice.
So
Are you gonna
I
do a
figured
live unboxing?
I think I will, but I think I'll do it after you, or while you're doing yours.
That makes
And then
sense.
yeah. So, but what I got from my shop today, I got Dark Horse Star Wars Hyperspace Stories. This is issue number 4.
That looks dope.
Yeah, I like this series just because not it's not serial. It's just
Just
it's
random.
a random story from the hyperspace. And then I
Oh,
got
really?
another.
Wait, so hold on.
Yeah,
That's
holding
an
up.
anthology series?
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
might have to check that out because the idea of a Star Wars anthology series sounds dope.
Yeah. But then I also got Star Wars High Republic The Blade.
That's pretty good.
This is a short run. I think it might be 4 issues. No, it has to be 5. It's Marvel.
Yeah, it's Marvel.
Yeah. And then I got another 5-issue series here, Hidden Empire number 4.
Nice. Palpatine with that hand lightning. Gotta love it.
And if you tuned in last week, I talked about Red Winter. Well, I got Red Winter Fallout number 3.
That looks sweet. I was saying I was making the thumbnail for Red Winter when we reviewed that last week and put up a video about it, and all the covers look so cool. They're just what I imagine. I imagine that they do a good job painting the inside of that world.
Yeah.
Say hi, everybody, Salem.
I'm really enjoying it. And then I think you got this one.
Yeah.
Darkland number 3.
I did. We got the same cover, I believe.
Same cover. I think this is just the cover A.
Yep.
And last but not least, I did not get cover A for this. I asked my shop, I'm like, hey, did you happen to get any of this in? Because I never asked you guys for it, but I really want it. And she's like, yeah, I have one left, and it's the Jeff Lemire cover of Phantom Road.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I also got Phantom Road. I
Yeah.
forgot. So for those of you who've been following along, I've kind of been, I really like this cover. I was tempted with some of the other ones, but I really like the cover A on this one. I've been kind of waffling on Jeff Lemire for some time, so I am
Yeah.
a little bit excited to get into this, but God help me if he makes me wait for a whole entire arc for like anything to happen. I'm gonna, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna probably just keep reading it or not read it. Who knows? But
Yeah.
let's see what Carl got. Carl got Actions 20, 1052, Detective Comics 1069, Human
Jeez.
Targets 12. I Hate This Place number 6. That came out? Oh
Yeah.
no. And
Oh,
then
you didn't get it?
no, I didn't even see it on my on the thing. Oh, that's a bummer. That's a real bummer. I love that. And then Phantom Road number 1. Look at that. He's along here with us. We'll have to hear back from Carl and let us know what you think about that. I'm sure we'll be talking about it next week. But that was a good pool.
The Action Comics and Detective Comics were two of the ones that I was wanting to get today, but I decided not to save a little extra money.
Yeah, isn't it a shame? You always want, like, that's how I felt too, because I got 6 comics today, including one. I got 8 Billion Genies number 7 physically. I read it digitally when it came out. But man, I actually am really happy with my pools because I believe the majority of them were from Scout, which is pretty dope.
It's always a good week when you get a lot of Scout, honestly.
Dude, Scout is so good. I just feel so happy when I see it, like the little the little logo. But let me just dive into what I got. So I got And We Love You. This is a one shot from Scout's comic, and it's a thick boy. I don't know if you can see that, but it was $10, and I'm imagining that I'm gonna get a whole big old story out of this.
Yeah, how many pages is that?
I don't know. It doesn't say on it, but I'm gonna go with a lot. I don't know if
Sounds about right.
If that's a technical term, but I mean, I've said it enough times on this show, and Carl agrees. Scout is a great publisher, 100%. But I completely forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I've said it a whole bunch on the show that I'm a fan of just small stories. Just tell me a story. I don't need everything. Just give me a story. So that's what I'm imagining this is. Going to dive into it, really enjoy it. And then the next one from Scout is Banshees number 1. I have known nothing about this, but
I have that. I have that right here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got this a couple weeks ago.
I said Banshees.
Oh wait, Banshees. Oh shoot, no, I didn't get Banshees. My bad. I got Barbarians.
Barbarians and Banshees. Right. That's our Barbarians and Banshees is our spin-off D&D podcast.
Yeah. So never mind. Scratch that. I did not get Banshees.
It's all good. But yeah, I really like the art in there. I have no idea what it's about, but it's from Scout Comics. Looks cool. So I'm all in. But this is probably the one I think out of everything that I got this week that I'm most excited for. This is Dead Follows, I believe it is, or Dead Fellows? Dead Fellows. Yeah. And I got a variant cover that's like a VHS cover.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it says, horror up here. Which is like similar to their Black Caravan. They put that on stuff. So I'm surprised that this didn't come out of that. But the concept behind this is I'm pretty sure that this boy here like just suffers through his first heartbreak, and it seems, or he gets dumped after a 2-year-long relationship, moves out on his own. I believe it looks like he probably attempts suicide, and then a benevolent ghost meets him, and so he tries interacting with them, and I believe what the description said something like you don't know the true intentions of these spirits or these poltergeists or whatever. So I don't know. It's a whole whirlwind of stuff, and if it's from Scout, I trust it to be at least interesting,
Yeah.
So I think that was it for me, because the rest I got was Darkland and the Jeff Lemire thing. But
what was the first one you showed again?
And We Love You.
And We Love You.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's a one shot. It says mature readers. So
Ooh.
I hope I'm mature. I don't think I am. I laugh at fart jokes. That's not true. How often do I
Yeah.
laugh at fart
Well,
jokes?
were you about to ask me if I did my package?
I did. Yeah.
I
was
did.
gonna.
I've undone it here, and
There you go.
look at this. This is so kind. Little bag of coffee.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, because you get a free cup of coffee with every purchase of a comic.
That's awesome.
So that's awesome. So thank you to it's Frank, right?
Yeah, Frank.
Yeah. So thanks to Frank. So Frank sent me. Well, he wrote a nice thank you note. It just says thank you on it. Oh my gosh, I got some stickers and a bookmark. I need a bookmark. This is amazing.
That's great. A comic bookmark is fantastic because I just use straw wrappers, which seems like a terrible idea.
I use whatever is lying around. Infinity War sticker, coffee and comic sticker. It's a little bear dressed as Punisher. It looks like that's
so
pretty cool. And another coffee and a comic sticker. I think it's a sticker. Oh, this might be there. Actually, I think this is the business card.
My goodness,
nice.
The variety in this pack.
I know, right? Oh man, I put my knife away too soon.
Classic. I can't tell you how many fights I've been in where I put my knife away too soon.
So same here, man. It's just like every time I see a fight coming, for some reason, instead of pulling it out, I put it back in my pocket.
Yeah, I was carrying it beforehand, but I'm like, time to put this away. I'm just imagining me like a man walking down the street, like clearly like looking like he has a knife too. I'm imagining that he has a knife.
Well, it's like
I have
put
a
it
knife
away.
I'm like, I'm gonna put this away and just fight you like a man with my bare hands. Then he's gonna stab me a bunch. That's how that's gonna go.
But it's also like your instinct is then to start snapping and get a sing along going. So you have a little sing along battle. But yeah, so here's what I got. I got Liquid Kill and Local Man. So yeah, I wasn't able to get those last week, and I'm happy to support a pal of a pal and all the pals.
Hey, all the pals out there.
All the pals out there.
That sounds like the song. All the pals out there. I don't know. Never mind. I'm sorry.
Give us a like.
I say that I'm sick, and yet I'm like being very animated and like silly. Maybe after this, I'm just going to collapse into a fever dream, I would imagine. But hey, man, speaking of fever dreams, do you want to get into we were going to do specs, but I feel like that transition would work better to talk about Blue Room.
Let's talk. Yeah, Blue Book.
Oh, is it Blue Book? Because I put Blue Room in the name of the title, so I'm gonna have to change that.
Yeah, people are probably wondering what's Monk reading over there. What's Blue Room?
I ruined Christmas again. But yeah, let's get into Blue Book.
Sorry, I'm seeing Carl's latest comment.
What it didn't come through for me yet. I got Scout is a great publisher. That was my last one.
Oh, the last thing you said here was I can't put it up on screen, but it says if you read hard enough, you don't need a bookmark. He's absolutely right.
There you go. That's true.
But when you're kind of on call for your children, you sometimes got to mark your place.
Yeah, and as someone with no children and is just a lazy person, sometimes you just want to stop in the middle of a comic. In all fairness, I don't really use them on like singles. I'll use them on trade paperbacks. So a lot of my trade paperbacks will have like I said, straw wrappers sticking out the top or like old ticket stubs. Yep, like 100%, just all that stuff. I'm like, this probably isn't good if I was ever gonna get this graded because maybe they'll have like straw wrapper residue. But what do I know?
Yeah, they're just analyzing what's this material on this comic. Oh, it's straw wrapper residue. What?
Send this to a lab. We need to get this analyzed. What this scumbag was doing with this comic.
Was it an eco-friendly straw wrapper?
No, because because I live in a small town and there's not any wrappers I'm getting around. Any straw that I get around here, they go outside and throw one on the ground just as like to counteract any sort of progression. That's this kind of small town that I live in. But
speaking of analyzing things,
we are on point tonight for these trends.
We're on point.
Wow.
But yeah, Blue Book. How did you like it?
Well, I liked it enough to not remember the name apparently. But besides that, I enjoyed it. I think it. So this is based on a true story
Yeah.
of I don't think of Betty, and I forget the name of the man. But it's
I think I did a bad job of making notes this week.
it's okay. You
Yeah,
did good.
Betty and Barney Hill.
Okay, yeah. And so
Yeah.
they're real life figures. This is a real life event, told from their perspective. And
Yeah,
I
you can Google this and find the Wikipedia page about it, and there's a whole thing. It's pretty interesting. But
right.
anyway, sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, I was aware of that prior to coming into this comic. So it was more so I knew where it was going. For me it was more exciting to see how things were playing out as they got there. And I
Yeah.
thought that was really interesting, seeing the like dynamic between the couple of just driving particularly with binoculars and like trying to watch this thing. And
Yeah.
I think it did a very good and realistic job of that kind of dynamic of a husband that's just like, no, just ignore it. It'll go away. And a
It'll
wife that's
blow
like,
over.
yeah, like
Yeah.
by the time, like he says this like a couple times, he's like, by the time I stop, it'll be gone, like just don't worry about it. And then the second that it's too late, he's like, oh no, this is an actual problem,
Yeah.
And I think that that's very realistic of at least couples probably in very previous generations of just ignore it,
Yeah.
But what did you think about it, man?
Yeah, I really liked it. What I didn't really expect out of it was that there was the second story.
Yeah, that
Like,
was
so when I flipped that last page of Betty and Barney's story, I was like, wait, what's going on here? And like I was a little confused at first. I'm like, oh, it's like another story. And I did really like Betty and Barney's story. It's, this is the one that's going to be the serialized part of this story that's coming out, at least for like the first arc. I don't know how many stories that Tinian's planning on telling through Blue Book, but
right.
but yeah, then the second story popped up, and it just what was it called? Like True Weird? Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And this one was on Coney Island, and like next week there's a different story that's called True Weird, but it's also based around like eyewitness accounts from like the early 20th century. And so I really enjoyed it. I like the change of like the art as well. Like it went from what you would expect out of Blue Book with all the blues and whites and blacks, and I think even like very very little other colors in there.
Yeah. And I remember talking about that in the last episode and being like very excited because I think, yeah, just being able to use, I mean, realistically, they probably use black, gray, white, blue. And that was it for the first comic, up until the end when there was some red and a little bit more grays. But for me, that's a fantastic sign of an artist of being able to use these things and just because to me it just looked like the moon, like that's all was like the reflection of the moon was what we were witnessing. So I think it was better than like trying to like actually like draw out or imitate like darkness and like driving and stuff, and just like kind of put those solid colors everywhere. I think that was a brilliant idea.
Well, it just did a lot too, just for like the paneling, and I really liked how the panels got laid out in this one as well. And just you already mentioned like the dialogue and banter between Betty and Barney, but like each panel just using those colors, it helped you just, at least for me, it just helped me stay like focused in on like not just what's being said, but what's also being told through the art.
Right.
And then it was the same thing with the last one too, with True Weird. It was a completely different style of art. I think the artist was a different artist?
I think so. I don't have my copy of it in front of me, so I'm kind of I screwed up on that one. But a lot of comics are doing that now, where they're throwing in a little, because Art Brute did that. I'm trying to think. There was another one that I just read last week that did that.
Well, a lot of comics will put in like the first 2 to 4 pages of another comic that's coming out soon. Like this is like 2 stories in one comic.
But even that Art Brute one was 2 stories, because it was just the Art Brute story was.
Oh yeah, it's because it's the like
It's
the
like
other adventures of Art Brute and Manny the
right.
Mannequin. Yeah.
Yep. I got to jump back on that series, and I'll tell you why later. But
Okay.
yeah, I I enjoyed Blue Book. I keep wanting
Yeah.
to call it Blue Room, but
I don't
yeah,
know why.
who knows?
They weren't even in a room.
Yeah, well, I guess like in my head, I'm like they're gonna end up in like a blue room where they get like lobotomized or something. I don't know.
By the aliens. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
what do we got next, buddy?
so coming up next,
Pal.
we had a series finished last week that you and I have been pretty jazzed about. But Specs 4 came out last week.
Yep.
We read that, and we haven't. I don't think we've talked about it yet. So
No. You posted about it on
I did post
Instagram.
about it, but I also didn't want to like give too much away about what is it, Ted and Kenny? I was yeah, Ted and Kenny.
Yep.
I don't want to give too much away about like the ending.
No.
Um, and for an ending too, it really for me they like hit it out of the park. Like
Mm.
it was a spectacular event. It was a well told story in 4 issues. You know it. I'm trying to think. It's just like it's about their friendship, right? Like
Hmm.
and uh is it Ted?
Yeah. I
Ted
believe.
Ted yeah. Ted's
Or
the
is it
like kind of the
now? I'll Google it if you just want to tell the story.
yeah, so Ted and Kenny are two friends. One of them is like kind of a star baseball player. And this I think Kenny's the baseball player.
Yeah, I think.
And he doesn't really hang out with his team outside of school and like the extracurricular activity of baseball, but he mostly just hangs out with Ted, and Ted's not really anybody in school, like not popular with the rest of the crowd. But they're best friends, and then Ted ultimately like has this secret that he hasn't told anybody, but he's still in the closet and he has a crush on Kenny.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and
so this is actually based off of because I was reading just now. David Boer is he's gay, and
yeah,
so I think that this has a little bit of, I mean, probably a lot of influences from his childhood and experiences that he would have had. And just not to like, I feel like I cut you off right there, but
oh, you're fine.
I felt like this was handled so well, and I love when
Yeah,
I see and not being gay, but being someone who's affirming of that community and has friends who are gay, um, and even has one in the chat right now. So
yeah,
like it's so cool to be able to see that representation and to see struggles and to have those stories be out, because it's important to
yeah,
be able to just be like, I'm a kid in high school. I have feelings for my best friend that I don't know how to articulate, and how, I'm scared of how he would feel. It's such a human story. And again, like, even if you're not gay, you've had experiences where you've started to have a crush on somebody who's a friend, like it just
yeah,
happens. And so it's interesting to be able to put yourself into that world where, like, yeah, you can see that and you can relate to it, and it's I've thought it was great.
yeah. And so like that, but like that story is kind of like the secondary story going on, but it was still very much brought forward just because like you have these two friends are going through the struggle of, wow, we got these really cool, awesome wishing glasses that just showed up on our step, and then turns out these things are bad,
Right.
and they're figuring out how to get rid of them. And they go through that whole journey of like it got really well wrapped up with like those last few lines of like it's not really about what we can wish for, but what we should wish for, or like
Or
the wish
it's the
or
wishes
wish
we didn't make
we
is
didn't
what.
make.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just really gives a lot of thought to just like, yeah, we all have things that we want and things that we wish for, and it really there's a lot of things that we can do on, but you always have to think about like the should aspect of it. And I think that's kind of what this story was pointing out, of like what you should and should not do, like in a in a
Situation like
in a
this.
situation like this, but also just
Yeah.
like with your friends, and like
Mm.
how you do go about like
And
revealing your, or just being vulnerable with your friends and being
right.
honest. It's
Or
like when
dealing
is
with
the time for
bullies.
that? Yeah.
Right. Or dealing with like living in a small town. It's like it's easy to like, I guess like a theme of this book is like it's easy to wish, but it's
Yeah.
harder to do, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I in the third issue we kind of get a little bit of a supernatural twist that isn't really addressed at all in the fourth issue. And
Yeah.
for a little bit I was like, I kind of was expecting like a kind of a little bit of a supernatural ending, but then I'm like, no, that's not what the book's about. Like I think sometimes it's very much about life. And
Yeah.
it's just like sometimes in life crazy stuff happens, supernatural stuff happens, but then at the end of the day you're kind of left still in the muck of everything, right? You're still left
Yeah.
with your pain, your love, like all of these very human emotions and feelings. And I think sometimes we just want to personify them like so great and crazy, but really like the best stories are just human stories, right?
Well, and then, and that, and also too, something that Specs did for me, it just brought up that callback to Stanley of like Marvel is the world outside your window.
Mm-hmm.
And you think back when and we've talked about this before, but like back when like Marvel was first around and first getting huge, like Stan Lee did a lot to push on like social issues that needed to be talked about and telling stories from perspectives of people going through certain types of just struggle, certain types of suffering. And like, yeah, you can argue Marvel still does some of that today. Like they still do that, but like back then, like the being bold enough to even tell those stories
Yeah.
was like a big deal. And Specs is just such, again, like just a great story that is part of the world that's outside of your window.
Yep.
And
That's a great way to put it.
it's never a bad thing to try and look at the world through somebody else's window.
Yep. That's
So
100%. That's a great way to put it, man. I think we should
yeah.
just leave that at that. If, the trade paperback will be out soon. It'll be 4 issues, so I would imagine it's be relatively cheap.
Yeah.
This is just a quick insert. That whole thing about Image's first volumes being $9.99 is absolute horse manure, because I spent my last weekend at my shop looking at the Image trade paperback shelf, and
Yeah.
there was like maybe like 1 out of every 10 that I pulled was $9.90. Like everyone else was higher. That might have been something they changed recently, because
Yeah.
but like I'm gonna wherever that comes up, I'm gonna be like, that's not true. That's
I
not true.
honestly think it might have to do with whether or not there's going to be a second volume.
Yeah, I would imagine that, or like maybe even like how successful the author is, who knows?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it is a bad thing, but I think it is like a common, I won't say at this level, it's a little bit of a myth in the comic community that they're all $9.99 and they're not.
Yeah.
But again, there might be something like you said, like if there's a second volume or there's no second volume, that might, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Well, when I went to Barnes and Noble, whenever that was, like 2 weekends ago, and got the buy one get one of Image, uh, I got 2 volume ones, and one of them was 99, the other one was 19.99.
well, there you go.
So
Yeah.
I had
But
to pay for the 19.99 ones.
of course you did.
That's how it works.
Well, hey man, do you want to get into some of the comics you read this past week?
Yeah, so I had another series finish up for me last week, and it's one I've been super jazzed about. I really love this story. It was very, very well told. It's probably for this year and the end of last year, it's probably my favorite series that's come out.
Mhm.
The art is just absolutely impeccable in it. It's very, very well drawn in such a way that it carries the story without dialogue. And something that this issue did, and I know I haven't mentioned it yet, something this issue did is that it had a few pages and panels where there was just no dialogue for a while, and you're just having to witness what the characters are going through.
Mm.
And I'm talking about Boogeyman number 6.
Boogyman.
Yeah.
See, this I want to make a joke, but I don't know how to make it about boogie, like boogie, like that kind of
I'll pull
boogeyman.
this one down just so
Like,
everybody can.
oh,
Yeah, no, I see what you're doing there.
yeah, that would be a
But yeah,
fun
this is the
parody.
cover for the final issue.
That's
Um,
beautiful.
this is something I would definitely say, like, watch for the trade paperback to come out on. But yeah, so this one, it just really wrapped it all up. And really it just became a story about like a boogeyman who essentially he was the oldest living one of all the boogeymen that exist out there, but he's also the last the last elder boogeyman, because all the rest of them were killed by like the younger generation of boogeymen. And this is weird. So if a boogeyman eats another boogeyman, they like get stronger. And
Oh,
so, and then
now
also they like let out these things called little sisters, which is like when they're scaring people, it's the things they create uh to raise the scare factor of what's going on, and they can eat those too and become stronger. um
that's
and
awesome.
yeah uh
Our
oh,
buddy Ray, I believe this is the comic book dad.
I believe so.
Hi, comic book dad. Make sure that you clarify that that's you, but I'm pretty sure it is. Thanks for swinging by, buddy. I know that he if just as a shout out to the pool box, that's us, to the pool box pals. Good go us to the comic book lair. When Boogeyman first started coming out, I would highly recommend going and listen to that episode because they just lose it over saying Boogeyman a bunch. So yeah, go and check that out. But continue. Sorry about that.
So yeah, so there's just all this kind of like weird factors that go into like, I guess, being a boogeyman. And then it's also revealed, so the boogeyman, who's known as, I'm gonna start calling him by what his name is, but he's Father Death,
Oh,
like that, like. And
that's
so
way less silly of a name.
yeah, so Father Death, like, he created a little sister that became a dog, and it was everything about him that was like bad and negative. He was able
Mm,
to put all of that energy out into this dog. And the boy that Father Death had not necessarily been haunting, but like he lived at this boy's house. The story started off with these other people of the boogeyman lore uh, showed up and killed the boy's parents, and then Father Death took the boy and like fled.
mm,
And uh, and the boy had also been reading about dogs, and so it was really cool to find this out about the dog, that he was all that was bad and negative about Father Death, because Father Death realized that he didn't want to be the person that he was. He wanted to be
mm.
something different, and that's why
Interesting.
he made the dog. And so
Mm,
the little boy throughout the series is basically saying like, old dogs can learn new tricks, like we can,
mm,
like, he's a dog, you just have to teach him how to like be obedient. And so like that was just something that was really cool to see over the time of the story. But then with this issue specifically, um, the last issue starts off with like the leader of like the younger generation of the boogies. Um, they've found Father Death, and so now there's the showdown that's happening between them in this issue. And while they're fighting, there's just like, there's cops surrounding the place because people have died, and so the cops are there, and they're fighting around the cops like in a room, and the paneling just shows the cops going through with their flashlights, not saying anything, but in the very same room that they're in is just this like massive chaotic fight going on. And it
mm.
was just so fun to just like be stuck into those panels and just eat that up. And it ended super well. So this is definitely at the top of my list so far for this year is the Boogeyman.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to make like a list of all the comics that we've read this year because I can feel like at the end of the year we're gonna be looking back and being like, what did we read?
Yeah.
Like it's just a lot. So we should probably start compiling a list. But I am. Where's this from?
This was from a Blaze, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah. So okay, so I'm definitely gonna probably pick up the trade paperback of that
And
when it
it's
comes out.
originally written in Spanish.
That's dope.
So that's something Ablaze does that I appreciate about them, is they look for comics that are out in the rest of the world and not just in English speaking countries, and bring them to the English format to be read.
That's great.
So,
Nothing wrong with that at
and
all.
and and I believe they're another Portland, Oregon publishing company.
Nice. Look at you.
So
You could walk on down there and say hi to the folks.
yeah, I
You're
mean,
gonna
if I walked, it would take me uh, some hours.
Yeah. What what else you got going on? Just walk down to
Yeah,
the random
I got
publishing
nothing else
place.
going on. I got no other responsibilities in my life. I'll just start walking up to a Blaze.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. All right, bud. Well, we are like covering a lot of comics that finished this week.
I guess
And
so. Yeah.
yeah, so I want to talk about the Vineyard. That
Mm.
just wrapped up, and that was a 4-issue miniseries from Aftershock Comics. Um, my buddy, our pal Brian Hotkins wrote it, and Sammy Cavella did the art. And Jason Wardy and Taylor Esposito was involved as well. I'm not 100% sure how. Okay. They did the coloring and the lettering. But just a quick recap for those of you who aren't familiar with the story of the Vineyard. It is that a family owns this. Can you guess what they own? A vineyard, a vineyard.
What?
Wow. And they have very delicious, great, fantastic wine. And the reason that they do have that is because they make ritual sacrifices to the god Dionysus, who is the god of wine. And in the story, the patriarch of the family is very much like gung ho and like, we serve Dionysus. Dionysus. Am I saying it wrong?
Dionysus is correct.
Dionysus. Okay.
Yeah.
We serve Dionysus. It doesn't matter who we have, what we have to do. We do it because we have made this pledge to this god. We're going to stick through to it. He's going to follow up on his end of the deal. And that's all that we have to do. And you can see that before I get there, where the story picks up is the father is in a wheelchair from an accident that happened. And so he's no longer able to do the harvesting of the sacrifices, let's say. So the responsibility falls on the shoulders of the oldest son. And this story is very much watching him fall to the dark side and just being seduced by Dionysus and seduced by like his blessings. And like, it's almost like kind of like alcoholism, what I imagine that to be like, of just like, I love this. I love this. I love this. I can't live without this. I need this. It's give me your nectar. I love this nectar. And then it ultimately corrodes you, but
I'm also going to go out on a limb and say it's probably not hard to succumb to Dionysus.
No, because I'll try to find some in this. But one thing that happens while he's making these sacrifices and praying is that like these figures come up out of the ground that are like,
little sisters.
Sure, is that? Am I missing
like the Boogyman?
Yeah, that's it.
The Boogyman little sisters, wow. But it's wine.
Yep, it's wine sisters. I got nothing. But yeah, man, it was when it finished, it was Brian has this wonderful excerpt in the back that was what like the comic was about, and just kind of like talking about the process and all that stuff. And so I read it, and it did such a good job of like summing up what it was about and talking about how this idea of what's important to a family and why is it important to a family, and how long and what is the balance between the importance of our religious obligations, our social obligations, whatever they are. How important are those if our family structures are decaying, if we hate each other? Does it really matter if we're being financially or business wise successful if none of us can even get along with each other?
Yeah.
And so I feel like we are just talking about stories with morals this week.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
those are the best.
They're the best. And like, and speaking of our pal Ray, who's chatting with us on here, when we were on their podcast, we talked about like, we love stories that, they have some like moral to them. And like every one of them does. And again, like, I'm gonna go back, but like that's what Stan Lee meant by Marvel is the world outside your window, because I guess I'm gonna go a little philosophical, but you're familiar with the word phenomenology, right?
I am familiar with that.
And that essentially that's just being able to see the world from somebody else's shoes.
Yeah.
And like that's why I really like comics, is just because there's so many comics out there. There's so many good ones, and every single one of them is exactly that. Like they are all like, every story is fighting for some idea that needs to either be made like prevalent or pushed forward. There's just something going on that's supposed to be helpful to humanity, like going on, or helpful to like the individual character of the story in how they get to struggle and strive with the rest of humanity. And so like, yeah, I love stories like that.
Yeah. Well, hey, do you mind if I talk about another one, because this kind of fits right into that theme? I know we usually kind of go back and forth, but
Yeah, go for it.
okay, sweet. I've had my eye on this for some time. So like I said, I was at my comic shop this weekend, and I was kind of in the I like to, when I have like free weekends, I like to go to the comic shop, buy myself a trade paperback, go home, read it. Like that's a nice like lazy Sunday for me. And I've had my eye on this for some time. King of Nowhere. And I bring this up because it's from W. Maxwell Prince, who is the same person who's doing Art Brute.
Yeah.
And Tyler Jenkins
Ice Cream Man.
Yep. Yeah. So I fell so in love with this art in here, because it is like everything that I love. It's that scratchy, kind of just obscure, weird world. The premise is that this man right here, whose name I completely forgotten, wakes up and he doesn't know where he is. And the first thing he kind of says to himself is like, this happens to you a lot. Like, you wake up a lot where you don't know where you are. Like, how long are you going to keep waking up where you don't know where you are? And
Sounds
so
like Memento.
A little bit.
Yeah.
It's not like Memento, but a little bit.
Part.
he walks out of the woods. Yeah, because what I'm about to say is nothing like Memento. He walks out of the woods, and then he sees a car driving towards him. So he puts out his thumb, and the person who stops has antlers. And he's like, I don't know if I'm like still tripping or still drunk or whatever is happening to me to cause me to wake up in this random place, but do you have antlers? And the guy's like, I have antlers. And he drove on. He didn't want to
yes, as a matter of fact, I do.
I do. They're very fancy. I sharpened them this morning on a tree. So he drives off, and the main dude just kind of wanders on into town. And when he gets into town, he realizes that everyone is like kind of like a hybrid, or they have some sort of mutation. It's not really revealed until issue 3. I think there's 5 issues in this, but around issue 3, they reveal that the town is called Nowhere, but it wasn't always called Nowhere. It was called something else. But there was a time when they did experiments on the town to see what would happen to human beings over long-term radiation exposure. So it wasn't like, I think a nuke might have gotten dropped, but it was essentially they nuked this town, they put radiation there, and they wanted to see how it would affect the individuals. And so that's why over generations you see these people. The sheriff is a cyclops, but his dad had 3 eyes. And so there's kind of like this fun story of like, did his dad get his eye? And the whole story is about alcoholism. So that's kind of to tie it into like what we were just talking about, this idea of comics with morals, because again, he talks about how just the length that his alcoholism has caused him to end up in places that he's not happy with, physically and as well like in his personal life. Yeah, so it's just a really cool story. The government sends in a guy to kill him, and he just starts wiping out like random town folks because he just kind of sees them as like experiments. So he doesn't, he's very callous killer. It reminded me a lot of the killer from A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance. Just like, I'm just here to kill. I love killing.
It's what I do.
It's what I do. Like,
man, have you ever seen the show Patriot?
No.
It's on Amazon. It's not like The Patriot with Mel Gibson. It's just a show called Patriot, and it's about this guy who he's kind of like a hired contract killer by the government, and he's the son of somebody who like is high up in like the FBI or CIA or something like that. But he has this one scene where he's like talking to this guy who's kind of buddied up with him. And like, this is kind of how I picture this guy that you're talking about, and the same guy from Righteous Thirst for Vengeance. But he just looks at him dead in the eye, and he's like, if you mess this up for me, like, I will kill you, and I will have no problem with it. I won't blink. Like, I will, like, it's nothing to me. Like, this is my job. and it's
Right.
just like it's super haunting. The show itself is actually like a kind of a dark comedy just based on like the dialogue, but
Mm-hmm.
um
Yeah, it's very much just like this blank killer expression. And
yeah.
it's like I said, it's about alcoholism. The main dude, he pairs up with a fish man who he meets at a bar, and they both have alcohol, they're both alcoholics, and they just
Hmm.
they're the story is very much like them swearing that they're never going to drink again because of how all the circumstances that they've wound up in are because of their alcoholism.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's not as like in your face about it is kind of how I just said it. It's very a little bit more subtle. I mean, they do say those things like outright, but it's it's wrapped up. It's just I enjoyed it. Like I posted about it on my Instagram today, and
So sorry, did you get the trade for it
I
then?
did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry I didn't even point that out. And also, look what studio this is from. Good old
Boom.
Boom, man. Boom is like I feel like if I had to go like the super indie route, Scout is definitely the top of that, and then Boom, I feel like it's indie, but
Well,
it's like indie mainstreamish because it's I would think
yeah.
like Boom, Image, they probably have a similar tier. I would obviously Image is bigger, but I think Boom is still kind of up on
Boom
that
has
level.
this avenue where they're also, it seems like Boom to me is trying to like, I mean, I think they're the ones that put out that one with Amelia Clark that we
Yep,
read.
yep. The Many Deaths of Lila
No,
Starr.
no, that's not what I'm thinking of.
Okay, that's Boom too, I believe.
That is
But
Boom, but
yeah.
I'm thinking of the mom one. Like it's like mom is a
Oh, Mother of Madness?
mother of madness. Yeah, I think
No,
Boom
that's
put that
Image.
out.
That
That's
was
Image.
Image. Yeah.
Oh no. Okay, I know what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of Berserker with
There
Keanu
you
Reeves.
there you go.
So like they seem to, and then also given like their announcements last week. I don't know if you saw Boom announce that they've been working with Netflix to develop Something's Killing the Children, which is
Yes.
great.
And
But like
every
that,
time I see a post about it, it's like I see it for the first time. And I'm just like,
yeah,
"Oh!" And I'm like, "Oh, wait."
really,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
exactly how it I'm like, "Oh, yeah, you know about this already, dummy."
But it seems to me like because when I read stuff from Boom, it's like this would be a perfect like series like
Mhm.
to watch, and it just seems kind of like in a
Very
way like
cinematic.
that's kind of what they're going for is like cinematic like featurette comics, and that's what I
Right.
really enjoy about them. They're
Man.
got a lot of Boom in them.
Yeah, and I was actually saying to the comic book dad, we were having a conversation in our little bromance boom corner. That's what I'm gonna rename our chat if I can to whatever I just said.
Romance
Um
Boom Corner.
bromance boom corner. I'm gonna try to do that. I'll do that later. But yeah, I was saying to him that I was looking when I was at the comic shop this past weekend. I was looking at the Boom stack. I saw a lot of the trade paperbacks of like Eat the Rich and the Many Deaths of Lila Starr, like all these comics that I read last year that I don't even think I really realized were Boom.
Mm, yeah.
And
He's a fan.
Ray's a fan, so I'll definitely have to change that.
Romance Boom Corner.
Bromance Boom Corner. I'm gonna change that while you talk about whatever comic you're going to talk about next.
Yeah, so up next, I've been talking with Andy quite a bit this week.
Andy Header, our
Andy
pal,
Header, yeah, our
Andy
pal
Header.
Andy Header.
That's pretty
And
dope.
like I had reached out to him about like, which like I want something else of DC to read. And we had talked also last week about how he's pretty good at keeping up with DC and Marvel stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
he told me to read Nightwing. I made a post about Nightwing,
I did.
which
I saw that.
was excellent. I suggest to go and read that. But then him and I also started talking about something him and I are both currently reading, and that's the crossover from Boom of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Nice. Yep.
And it took me until the second issue to realize that the one we're currently reading is called Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2.
Oh.
And so I was like, there's another one. And so like after like before I started reading this last one, I went to see like, is there a way that I could read it? The first one, and it's on Comixology. So like I breezed through that. And I'm not so far into this current one that I like needed to read back on the first ones. And man, like it's so much fun. It's
Mm.
just it brings you back to your childhood in a lot of ways. Like I was huge on both TMNT and MMPR.
What?
Mighty Morphin Power
Oh,
Rangers.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm dyslexic. And
So am I, and that's why I the R and the P in my head were playing
yeah,
tricks on me.
single letters. If I feel the same way about phone numbers, if it feels like if someone's reading me a phone number or spelling something, it's like they put all the letters in their hand and just throw it at me. My
Yeah.
brain can't process it in a sequence. And anyways, that's
Anywho, that's a different podcast talking about our dyslexia. It's the
yeah, the dyslexia dudes. Or I guess we would
that's
have to call it like it would.
dyslexic dudes.
We would just the D's would be all backwards or upside down or
Something like
whatever.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Different shapes. Um,
This D's a star.
it's got a triangle in there.
Anyways.
But yeah, I've been having a lot of fun just reading this series, not just because of the nostalgia, but also just seeing like two teams like team up together.
Yeah.
And like the first volume is super fun. The artist changed for the second one. And what was like really cool in this one or in the current run, or sorry, in the first run, basically what happens is Tommy Oliver, who's the Green Ranger, he's kind of missing through the first couple issues of it, and they don't know where he is. And it turns out he's been working with the Foot Clan.
That's not good.
That's not good, right? Because you would think a Power Ranger would know, like, hey, the Foot Clan's bad. Like, I know you're West Coast, but over here on the East Coast, like the Foot Clan's pretty bad. But anyways, he's actually trying to save a friend and from the Foot Clan who's gotten mixed up in that business. But it starts a fight between the Rangers and the Turtles, obviously, because like the Turtles catch Tommy doing a crime. And they try and stop him, and then like he has to morph into the Green Ranger in order to fight the Turtles. And so then the Rangers like, oh, we found him, so they show up, and so there's this battle going on. And like while they're fighting, they're just like, so we're still fighting even though we know there's more going on and that we're both good guy teams, like. And then they're just like, all right, maybe we should just stop fighting until we can figure out what's going on.
I mean, that's a classic comic book cliche of, have a tussle and then be like, okay, no, we're friends. You punched me hard enough in the face to make me realize that we have the same agenda.
Yeah. So like, the first series is really fun. So Shredder ends up stealing like the Green Ranger's coin, and he becomes the Green Ranger. So he's like Shredder Green Ranger. And all these just like battles that you would like hope to see like happen, like Rocksteady and Bebop get enlarged by Rita. And so they're like tearing up New York. And so, and then
they're like kaiju.
Yeah. And like the Rangers lost their ability to morph. And so they tried to see if the Turtles could use it, and the Turtles ended up using it. And so then they're fighting him with the Megazord. It's super cool.
Dang. I
really enjoyed it. And then like the second series though just stands out so much more because I think I like the artist more. The first volume is a little bit more traditional in its respects of how it portrays the Turtles and the Rangers. Right. Yeah, the second volume, the artist seems to be piggybacking more on what. So it's I don't know if it's Ryan Perot or Ryan Parrott. I'm not sure who's writing it. He's currently writing like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 4 Boom, but he's also doing this crossover, which is also a crossover with IDW. But he's working with Dan Mora on volume 2, and Dan Mora's art in this is just phenomenal. And like when certain things happen in this series, it's just been so much fun in the way that it is artistically displayed on the page. And like here's a little spoiler, but the Rangers aren't strong enough essentially to just be regular Rangers. So they have to figure out how to morph and mutate, and they, instead of morphing into like their normal thing, they mutate into like a triceratops, pterodactyl, mastodon. And it's just, but yeah, it's really, really fun. And like, I'm really enjoying it. And yeah, I know Andy's enjoying it as well. So
yeah, I would imagine so. That sounds like that definitely sounds like a comicsology, like how I will approach that. It's just load that up, keep on swiping,
Yeah. But there's also there's a lot going on in it too with relational dynamics and it's like certain people betrayed other people, and Shredder's on a team with people you wouldn't expect him to be on a team with, and some of the Rangers are on a different team, and it's just there's a lot of like chaos and dynamic going on with like the relationships, and that's what's been really fun as well as they
That's awesome.
explore how do we settle this issue.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, hey, you were talking about some classic characters, so I'm going to talk about probably one of the most classic characters.
A
I'd say.
very classic character.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Ooh,
Well,
ooh,
if it's the yeah, I was gonna say if it's the most classic character, we're probably talking about
look at
Superman.
him. He's flying. Whee! Whee! Wow, we're in a
And
silly
for
mood
those of you listening, Tim is flying Superman across the screen with his comic.
Wow, I feel like a child again. This is great. And this is great. Like realistically, this was a comic book. That's what I want to say. Like I don't know how to say it anything other than like it felt like I pulled this off like the spinner rack and I was opened it up and I was like, what is Superman up to today? Because I think like a lot of times with number one, they just want to start fresh. They're just like, we're going blank, we're gonna reintroduce Superman. But that's not what happens here. It's very much picks up with like, you know who Superman is, you know who Lois Lane is. Lois Lane is head of the Daily Planet at the moment because the guy who normally leads it is on sabbatical.
Perry White.
I believe you're right. And I really enjoy the art in this issue. It was, I know I said this last week about this, but it's just very enjoyable. The premise is that Superman's kind of like having a little bit of an identity crisis. He, I guess, recently just came back from the dead or was missing or something like that. And he's trying to figure out.
That's interesting. So like, is it kind of playing off of like after the death of Superman, the run that happened back?
No,
in like the 90s?
I kind of take back saying that he died. It seemed like he was MIA for a bit or like something. He wasn't classic Superman. Again, I don't really read DC, so this was just jumping in. But anyways, he's coming back in. It's how it starts is he's fighting a super villain, and there's this green text bubble that keeps kind of appearing, and you don't know who it is until later in the issue. It's revealed that Superman has trained his super hearing to be able to hone in on certain people. But because of that, he can't really turn it off, especially if the person knows. And so the person that is communicating with him is Lex Luthor, but he's in jail. So Lex is in jail and he's just talking to Superman. And it's kind of like a voice in the back of his head, like taunting him a little bit.
Okay.
And Lex, because he's in jail, leaves, I guess I should say prison. He's in prison. He leaves LexCorp to Superman, and it becomes Super Corp, something like that.
Supercorp.
Man Corp. I don't know what's happening.
But keep trying to spin that. Let's just spend the next like 10 minutes.
Yeah, let's go over. You're canceling bowling. I'm gonna try to workshop something funny here. But yeah, so it's just super interesting to see, Superman is very hesitant. He doesn't want to take it, but there is some sort of, if he doesn't decide to run the business, then it shuts down. And then like a third of Metropolis is out of a job or something like that. So Lex kind of has him on the moral high ground where he's like, I got to keep these people employed. But what he decides to do is like, all right, well then if I have all this access to like great technology and great minds, I'm actually going to do something good with it, and not just like waste or like Lex did, just spend all my energy trying to stop me. He could have been focusing on other things. And I think that's where that story is going to go. I don't know if I'm going to stay on it. If I'm being super honest, if I remember that it's out and I see it, I'll probably grab it. I did really enjoy it. Like I said, like it was just pure comic book goodness, but it's just, it's one of those things where it's like there's just a quadrillion comics, and that's that.
You can only read so many in a week,
man. Yeah. So, or just ever,
Yeah.
Like you at this point, you just probably can't consume them all, and maybe you could if it was like your job.
Well, I'm still trying to dwindle down my stack of things to still read.
Right. Yeah.
I think there's probably about 3 weeks worth of comics in that stack.
Yeah. Well, I have the whole last arc of what's the farthest place from here. I want to get back on that really bad. I'm gonna wait until the last issue comes out of the second arc before I kind of plow through all of them.
Yeah.
But you got any more shout outs or anything you wanna throw out there?
Well, I know there's a lot of hype around I Hate Fairyland right now because like it just got brought back. I had never read the first run at it, and so I went to my library and I picked up the 4 volumes for it, and I've been reading through that, and I'm loving it. It's one of those ones where you can kind of just laugh out loud about it because it's so ridiculous.
Nice.
And yeah, so I'll be watching for the trade paperback of the new series to come out. I don't even know what issue it's on at the moment, but yeah, so I've really been enjoying that. I've been enjoying going to my local library and checking out graphic novels. It's been
that's
fun.
really cool. I have a library literally like a block and a half away from my house, so I don't know why I don't walk down there and do that.
It's also too, it's like a lot of this stuff too, it's like, yeah, you could search Comixology and you can read it on there, but I do prefer to have the physical thing in my hand, and so that's what's been nice about it. So I'm glad I figured out I could use my library as a resource to continue to read more good stuff.
Hey, you know what they say, it's reading fun's not hard when you have a library card. Isn't that the expression? Yeah, there we go.
That's what they say. I've heard that one.
I'm constantly saying it. That's why I was so good at saying it just then, because I practice it. But the last one that I want to shout out, unless you have more to say about that, is just the Wasp #2. I picked up a couple of weeks ago. I went back and got the A cover because I really liked how they're doing this, but I also really loved this B cover or whatever it is. And I don't even remember if I explained the premise of what's happening in this, but when the Wasp was first introduced in the Ant-Man comics, she was introduced, I believe this is true, or at least this is how it appears from this comic, that she was introduced in this arc where her father was killed by this like interdimensional like space glop that possesses people, and if you look at them, you die, or you get possessed by, like, bad things happen if you look at this thing. And so that happens in, when the Wasp was first introduced, and now in this series, that creature has come back, and Nadia, who is Hank Pym's kid with a Russian woman, Hank Pym's gone. I don't know where he is, but he's not in the scene. I think he's merged with Ultron at the moment. Him and Ultron.
Oh, okay,
yeah. So he's gone, and then it's just these two tracking down, like, where this is, what's happening. And the really fun part about this issue was the bad guys sent out a bunch of like automatons, like robots or whatever, that were all different iterations of the Wasp throughout her history. So it was kind of like teasing her of being like, look, I've been observing you this whole time. I know how you do these things. But the robots that they sent out aren't very competent. And yeah, they kind of think that, well, they're overconfident, but they're not competent. They think that they can do this, but then realize very quickly that they can't. But yeah, so it's just a fun tale of diving into that world. I love being in the Ant-Man world, so it was great to be there.
Right on. One thing I also want to bring up, I'm sure any of you listening, if you're following any comic book artists right now, the nominations for the Ringo Awards are going on right now.
Okay.
And so there's a link that you can get. I have it if anybody needs it, so you can hit me up on Instagram and I can get it to you. But I got it from one of our pals that's a creator.
Why don't you send it to me after this episode, and I'll put it in the show notes for everything.
So
perfect. If you're listening back to this, it should be in our our show notes.
Another reason that I bring this up is because, like, one of the questions on the form to fill out is like, who do you nominate as like best cartoonist? And it's like, well, what does that mean? I never really put that together. It's pretty obvious. The cartoonist is somebody who does the writing and the art.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I learned that because of reading I Hate Fairyland.
Yeah. Interesting. I really like that. That's how a lot of I think most mangas are just all one person. I also don't know mangas at all, so don't come.
I guess I should also say it was never something I really thought about.
No, it would like have a title.
Yeah.
Like, Yeah, I'm 100% with you. The
So
only one that I'm thinking of is either Jeff Lemire and Chip Zdarsky. Those are
yeah, well,
both people
there's
who have
also
done
like
their own art.
Kit Wallace who did Mr. Easta.
Okay,
He did everything for that. So like there's tons of them out there, but I was just like I've never been presented with the question, who's your favorite cartoonist? And it's like, well, what does that compare to in terms of like artists and writers? Like
right, yeah, that's
so
really cool though. Yeah, so like I said, it should be in the link in or that link should be in the description after this, not now.
I'll actually just
Yeah, get that
yeah,
ready.
I'll get it for you.
All righty. Well,
Um
while you're getting that ready, why don't I saddle up this horse and ride her on into town?
Sounds good.
All right. Well,
And
guys,
then,
thank you. What were you gonna say?
and then tie it up next to the watering hole.
That's right. Just slightly too far away, so we can't get any drinks. We're not good horse owners. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for hanging out. We had a great turn on the live stream, so I appreciate everybody who came and hung out while we did this live. If you're listening back, I appreciate you hanging out and looking forward to the audio coming out. I'm assuming that you're looking forward to it, but yeah, just make sure that you leave
I know
us.
I am.
Me too. I can't wait to wake up in the morning and see what
Listen to
podcast is.
myself. I can't just love it.
I do it. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I don't listen back to the podcast. It's entertaining.
Yeah.
I wish I could like leave myself a no, Tim, don't do that. Okay, there we go. In my hopefully in my listen back to this, it'll sync up to I'm about to do something really stupid, and then I just stop myself from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm supposed to be wrapping up the show.
Yeah.
Or yeah, so if you want to give us a like, just give us a like wherever you can give a like. If you can subscribe to us, that would be great. On YouTube, we're on Twitch and Facebook as well. We got Twitter, TikTok, we're all on Instagram. We have a link tree in our description that's already there. So if you want anything, everything should be there. But yes, if you could give us some reviews, if you could, like some stuff, comments, it all helps us grow in the algorithm, and we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say before we wrap this up? Before we shoot this horse?
Wow.
Yeah, I'm real violent this week.
You sure are. No. I mean, I think I'm good. So,
all righty.
Do I get to say it this time since you did all the social stuff? Do I get to say it?
Yeah, heck yeah, man. Give it to us.
All right. You haven't read comics like these in years.